Right, okay, so next thing we're going to do is have a look at a brief summary. So everything we've done earlier on, I'm just going to summarise the key points. But these key points just relate to what you need to know for the actual exam. So co-ownership and implied trusts. Okay, so first point, introduction, part A. You've got to define a co-ownership. So what is a co-ownership? We've already spoken about that already. It's simply where two or more parties decide to enjoy land together at the same time. So just a brief explanation. And your typical example will be partners. Just a very brief explanation, just to demonstrate your knowledge that you know what co-ownership is all about. And you don't have to, but you might contrast it with strict settlement, where land used to be restricted to the enjoyment of successive life tenants. But that's just a bit of extra if you want to add that on. It just demonstrates your ability to compare how land used to be held and how it is held now. So just a basic definition, and if you want to comment about strict settlement, so you give an example where somebody owns the land for their lifetime, and then when they die it's passed on to the next person to enjoy for their lifetime, and sometimes conditions are attached. If you remember, you can only inherit land, for example, if you marry a certain person, or if you become a solicitor, or if you don't leave the Catholic Church or whatever. The different types of conditions that were attached. Right, and then what you've got to do next is talk about legal owners and equitable owners. So bearing in mind that when two people buy a house together, what roles do they play? Okay? The expansion of this point is a bit of emphasis on legal owners. So in other words, what can legal owners generally do? They can sell the land. Yeah? Even though the principle comes from a few years back, it gives you a general idea as to the different roles that used to exist, and that role in a way is passed on to current methods of holding land, co-ownership. But the difference here is that in the past, legal owner, equitable owner used to be different people, but now they are the same people. Just to reinforce that point again, we did say that if you're a trustee and co-owners they hold the land on trust for each other, your main responsibility is to look after the house. simple as that. Because it's for you and your partner, you and your husband, you and your wife, to enjoy that land. So just basic concepts to do with co-ownership, legal owners, equitable owners, the role of a trustee, things that you would comment on, and that all comes in your introduction. So define co-ownership, talk about legal owners, equitable owners, bearing in mind that they're one and the same people who are both types, and then a little bit about trustees as well. Okay. The next point is then you need to discuss the relevance of sections 14 and 15 of the Trust of Land and Appointment of Trustees Act. I put 1991, but it's 1996, so it's children. So section 14 gives you opportunity to solve any problems, and 15 tells you how you might solve that problem. So in other words, why was the house bought? Was it bought for a particular purpose or function? And so on and so forth. And then we refer to various cases which are in your textbook, so you'll be able to have a look at those cases. Irish Bank and Bell, I think, was one of them. And mortgage, something, and share. So have a look, refer back to your notes. But those two cases at least. And we also had a look at a case where the courts decided to split the property into two. Case now. Landy and something. It's in your text. So there are three cases you can refer to. The first two were opposite cases, and the third one was where the courts decided to split the property into two.
Roadway.
Sorry?
Roadway.
Yes. And London, absolutely. Both were GPs, weren't they? Thank you. Right, then this is the body now. Let me just make sure where we are. Sorry, we start from the body there. So talk about section 14 and 15. Use various cases, so refer to case law. You can find the cases in your notes, but I think there was Irish Bank and Bell, and there was also Mortgage Limited and Share, and then Rodway and Monday. Do have a look at those cases. Right, next point then, still in the body then, comment on joint tenancy. So what is joint tenancy? The key point there is the rule of survivorship applies. So give a suitable example. The example is important. So once you've spoken about the rule of survivorship, you would then give an example of husband and wife or two partners or two friends buying a piece of land together and both owning 100% shares in the property. If one person dies, the survivor inherits everything. So the example has to be clear, simple and straightforward. Okay. So once you've commented on the definition, you then need to talk about the rule of survivorship. And don't forget, because it's a 1 hour exam, as long as you've written enough information, you don't have to write reams and reams, but so long as you've covered enough information, and I would imagine front and back and maybe front again roughly is a rough idea. Some students, depending on how big your handwriting is, can write front and back and cover everything, and that can still get you a distinction. So it's just, there's no specific word count because you've got a time limit, but it's the information that you cover, and that's why we're going through the guidelines to give you some ideas as to some of the things to think about to include. Talk about the 4 unities, yeah? So, you've got time and title, possession, and I've forgotten the 4th one, but they're 4 unities. Just talk about them very briefly and explain what they are. Somebody just check the third one. Sorry?
Interest.
Interest, thank you. And brief explanation. So time means you buy the house at the same time, you get the same title from the same document, you both have equal interest, 100% each, and you both live in the property at the same time. So that possession and time really link together, but just very brief discussion as to what they mean. And if these four things exist, then you hold your interest as joint tenants. The other one, still in the body, is to do with tenants in common, to explain what that means. This is where individual owners actually have specific shares. So depending on who's contributing what towards the property, one might have 90% share, one might have 70% share, and so on. So it's a split of the 100% between the members or owners of the property. And then you go on to explain that the rule of survivorship does not apply. So mention the rule of survivorship certainly doesn't apply. It means that the surviving members inherit what their share is. So there will be a specific share, and it wouldn't be 100% as stated in joint tenancies. Okay. Then severance. Talk about severance. So how might a joint tenancy be severed? Notice under section 36, was that 36, or the Law of Property of 1925, Hinch and Bullard is another case that you might refer to. That's the first method, and I did say that you can just talk about one method of severance. Having said that, if you did talk about two methods, then you will bump your mark up, no doubt. But you don't have. You can still get a distinction if the rest of your work is of a high quality by just discussing one method of severance. So Williams and Hensman, you've got the three different methods. So talk about those as well. So you can do one or the other. Right. And then after you've done that, you're just drawing a suitable conclusion. Draw a suitable conclusion as to co-ownership, so just your own common sense summary of what you've written at the beginning of your essay and in the body of your answer. So that deals with part A. Part A will be probably a bit more in terms of content than part B. So part B then, and that's as I say, slightly shorter because that's the implied trust. You just have to talk about the two types of trust. So let's have a quick look then. So introduction then, define implied trusts. And that's simply where someone acquires an interest in property. That's the general definition. That gives you a rough idea. So when you're reading your textbooks, it will give you a rough idea on how to develop that theme. And then all you need to do is contrasts constructive trust, ongoing payment, ongoing substantial payments, where the homeowner, the legal owner, is aware that you're making these payments because you want an interest in the land. Yeah, so we make that clear distinction. Constructive trust, rather, where you make that ongoing payment, with the legal owner being aware that it's not a gift, you're not just giving it to them for any other reason other than the fact that you want an interest, a part of the property. Resulting trusts, one-off payment, normally at the beginning or at the time of purchase. Again, there's quite a lot of information about those two types of trust. Now, the final bit, that's why this is slightly short, the final bit is to comment on Williams and Boland. So, in other words, when you have a moment, you can either read the actual case or a summary of the case. You can get quite a few cases and materials in property, like go to the Boots Library. Or you can get it on Westlaw, and all you do is just summarise the key facts of Williams and Glynn's Bank, and that's the fact that Mr. Boland, the legal owner, didn't appoint a trustee to receive the proceeds from the bank, because he mortgaged the property. So in other words, he gave the bank a lease over the land. The bank gave him some money, but he took that money by himself, without appointing a trustee. So what it meant was that Mrs. Boland still had an interest in the land. So when he didn't pay back the mortgage payments, the bank could not take the house away from the Bolands without paying Mrs. Boland an amount of money. So the key thing here is that whenever you take a mortgage out, the person who receives the mortgage, the money, has to make sure that they appoint a trustee, and that would normally be your solicitor, for example. There will be two people receiving the funds, in which case all the contribution made by Mrs. Boland will be overreached, because what should happen then is when Mr. Boland gets the money, he should then give Mrs. Boland the contribution she's made. If he doesn't do that, then he could be sued. So a brief summary, I mean, you can mention the other case, which was City of London and Flegg. You can mention that case, but the emphasis should be your summary. Because the whole point of the quote from Williams and Glynn's Bank is the fact that you have to be very careful to make a lot of enquiries of persons in actual occupation of the property. So you need to know whether they've made a contribution or not, whether they have any kind of implied trust. And if they do, you've got to wipe that out from the property, so you take the property free of anybody's interest. So the quote is very important. Yes, it is.
See, would the bank not specify that, though, to have money to make sure that there was a trustee?
You would have thought so, but in 1981, I'm not quite sure what happened then, but yes, you would normally, yes, that should be part of the procedure. Having said that, it's very similar to undue influence. People who get second mortgages, they should normally make sure that the wife knows about it, because normally she wouldn't be signing the mortgage deal, it would just be the husband who wants the money, or vice versa. So there are quite a few things that do go wrong in terms of banks giving the money, because all they want is they want the business, don't they? Mm-hmm. And that's why the backlog has been the PPI scenarios that we have now, because banks sometimes, don't always follow the right procedure, but they're still getting the business, so that's all they care. And most of the time, or sometimes it backfires. Like this one, where he couldn't pay the mortgage payments, and then they wanted to take the house, but somebody else had an interest in that house as well. So that's a brief summary, everybody, of what you need to do. And there you go, final bit there. So comments on Williams and Glynn's Bank and Boland, and then your conclusion. And the conclusion is the onus on the seller to make searches and ask questions, and so on.
What did you just say?
The onus is on the seller's, the buyer solicitor to make searches. So in other words, if you're buying a house, you need to make sure that the seller tells you everything or everything about anybody who owns an interest in the house. Because if you're buying from a seller, they might have had an uncle, an auntie who might have given them £30,000 right at the very beginning to help
So
them
the
buy the
owner
house.
buys a solicitor to make searches?
The buyer's solicitor, because you're buying the house, so you need to make sure you're buying the house free of any interference. Yeah, and that's the essence of searching or asking questions all the time. Because as I say, you don't want to buy a house that is subject to an implied trust. And in a nutshell, that's a summary of everything you need to know for the exam. I'm going to turn the camera off now because I think that's all I need to say to the camera, right?